This is not the place for thoughts that does not end in concreteness. It's not easy to be open or too curious. It's dangerous to dwell too much on things, to wonder who or why or when, to wonder how is dangerous. But how do we, the people, get out of this hole? What's the way to fight? Might I do like Richard and Ralph and Langston them did? It's not easy to be a poet here. Yet I sing. I sing.
Gary Goucher. This is my wife, Sue. So my case. The day before I had gone to work here. See, our workshop's a little building right over there. It is about 92% recycled.
Even the shingles on the foundation are recycled.
So anyway, I start my plants out there, and then in mid-March we move them out front to the hotbeds. Come over here in the morning, work all day, and then go back for supper at night. That day I went to work, and my folks weren't around.
But they had been planning a trip to Sugar Grove.
Just figured, no big deal. They go away sometimes. By night, they didn't get back. I started to get worried about them. I figured, geez, they must have gotten in a car accident, but what do? Call hospitals?
You can't. You can't, not between here and Sugar Grove.
And the police, I knew, wouldn't investigate until they'd been missing for 24 hours. So I just basically sat by the phone until midnight and went to bed. In the morning, I got up to phone the police, and a customer came walking up the driveway looking for motorcycle parts, and in the back room where we thought the part might be is where we found my father's body. Now, it looked to me like he'd suffered a stroke because he's face down in a pool of blood, and he obviously was dead. I checked his pulse. Now all of a sudden, here's my father's body. My mom's been missing, so I phoned the paramedics who called the police, who told me they suspected foul play. And about an hour and a half later, they found my mom's body in the trailer out in front of the house. She'd been killed and covered with rugs and pillows. They'd been hidden, and their throats were slashed. 2.5 hours after I found my parents' body, they had me arrested.
It's not easy. You stand waiting for a train or a bus that may never come. No friend drives by to catch a ride. You're cold. You're tired. You call yourself a poet. You'll work all day mopping floors and looking out for thieves.
Robert Hayes. This here my wife.
Georgia Hayes.
Baby, they know your last name.
I know, Robert. I wanted to introduce myself.
Now, at the time that all this had happened, I was at the racetrack working, taking care of the horses, you know. And at the racetrack, this white girl, she get raped and killed. And you know she be dating those black guys. Now, when she got killed, they asked me if I ever had sex with the girl. I told them, yeah, but then they said,
well, were you having sex with her that night?
I said, no, but then they said,
why does she like hanging out on the black side of the track?
I said, I don't know why she like hanging out back there. I guess we more fun. But anyway, this girl, she get killed, and the cop come around to my job the next morning. He said,
we gotta talk to you.
I said, okay, so I went down to that police station, and they just kept on saying,
we know what happened.
We know you asked her on a date, and she hit you.
And you hit her back.
And you didn't mean to hit her that hard.
They just came right on after me. You see, me and this white girl, me and she had dated. And you know people around here don't like that too much. And in my first trial, I knew I was going to prison. I had 11 whites and 1 black on jury.
And do you think, now be honest, seriously, do you think that if the roles had been reversed, and there had been a black woman and a white man on trial, do you think that same thing would have happened?
Right. Because let's go to another high-profile case. Now, in your hearts and your opinion, do you believe O.J. committed that crime?
O.J. Look, I don't know. And I still think that O.J. committed that crime. I'm sorry, I don't care what they say. If the DNA puts you there, O.J. please, you guilty.
Carrie Max Cook.
Cassandre Cook.
It actually started when I was in the 10th grade. Me and my friends would, act like we were going to school and then run out the back door and start trying to find a car with the keys in it. And I had the misfortune that one of the cars that I stole in my ventures to conquer the world was the sheriff's deputy car. And I wrecked it. The driver said I didn't take it. And make a long story short, the deputy beat me for it. And that was pretty much it after that. Any robbery, any broken window, any cat up a tree, everything was just my fault as far as the sheriff was concerned. Then fast forwarding, I'm 19, I'm at this apartment complex in Texas called the Embarcadero. There's a swimming pool there. It's where all the hip people hang out. And I was an attractive guy. Dressed real nice. It was the 70s. Man, I bought my clothes from the hippest place, like the Gap. Had my hairstyle, real long platform shoes, bell bottoms. I looked tight. And I'm walking towards the swimming pool, and there is this beautiful, gorgeous girl. Well, not as pretty as you, but really gorgeous, just nude, and fondling herself right there in the window. And I'm like, oh my God, wow. Because I had never even been to a strip club before. I lived a very sheltered, naive life, and I'm seeing this complete, total, mature woman, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool, man. Anyway, a couple days go by, back at the pool, and there's this chick lying out there. We started talking, told her I was a bartender in Dallas. Of course, I was working in a gay bar, but I didn't. I was just stretching everything as much as I can because I want to be all that plus a bag of potato chips. Anyway, we wound up going back to her apartment. We, made out.
But not all the way.
Oh, no. I was in there for maybe 30, 45 minutes, whatever, and I got cold feet because she was so aggressive, and I left. And I didn't ever hear or see her ever again until I'm arrested for her murder 3 months later, August of 1977.
Since June 10, 1977, Tyler, Texas has been screaming and crying for someone to answer to this crime.
The state of Texas would object to that being far beyond the scope of this case.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
They had found a fingerprint of mine on her door frame.
And they had a fingerprint guy whose knowledge of fingerprints at that point was a 6-month correspondence.
Lieutenant Doug Collins is an expert fingerprint technologist. He will testify that he found the fingerprint belonging to the defendant, Carrie Max Cook. Now that fingerprint, ladies and gentlemen, is as clear as the day you first put your footprint on your birth certificate. That officer had no reason to lie. He will narrow down the time element involved in the leaving of those fingerprints.
Objection, Your Honor. You can't date a fingerprint. It's scientifically impossible.
It cannot be proven what time those fingerprints were left. This would place in the mind of the jury that the defendant was there at the time of the murder.
Is that all you have?
Yes, ma'am.
Your motion is overruled.
Yeah, that judge let them say all through my trial that I left that fingerprint there at the time of the murder. And this next part has all been hidden for 20 years. Linda, the victim, had been having an affair with this guy, Whitfield, a professor of sciences over at the university. And everyone had just found out about it. He was fired from his job, lost his wife, his kids. And her roommate, Darla, says she sees somebody in the apartment that night with silver hair, medium short, touching the ears fashion, wearing white tennis shorts, just like Whitfield. In her police report, she says she sees Whitfield in the apartment that night and says,
Don't worry, it's only me.
And goes to bed. But at the trial, she says,
That's the man right there.
and points to me. And my lawyer didn't even argue it. My attorney was the former DA who jailed me twice before. He was paid $500. And in Texas, you get what you pay for.
It's not easy to find some quiet place, some grace. No time to talk about dreams in this world. Ice is everywhere.
David King. When they first moved me in, I was in high school. I had a lot of thoughts of what I was going to do and where I was going to go. Where I should be, 10 years from now. I was, as somebody said, called to the ministry. But I mean, the way they picked me up, me and some friends coming home from a movie that day, we saw this big commotion. We were like, man, what's going on now? So we run down and sure enough, it's a gang of cops trying their lights up in my grandmama's house. And we were just standing there, watching. One of the cops comes over and says,
Did you all know David Keaton?
and here I am locking up. I'm he. So they took me down to the station and interrogated me. Asked me all sorts of questions about this robbery. I just kept on telling them over and over again. I don't know what y'all talking about. I don't know what y'all talking about. I don't know what y'all talking about. Well, they locked the door and held me incommunicado, as some might say. When they first brought me into jail, the deputy asked the sheriff at the time,
Are you gonna keep him?
and the sheriff said,
You're goddamn right we're gonna keep him.
see, what had happened was the sheriff was up for re-election that year. This is a big unsolved crime at the time. They had to bring somebody in for it. They kept on telling me all sorts of information about the robbery, like who's standing well, and all that. I mean, I don't even know what this store looked like. And they yelling at me, trying to get me to describe it.
This interview is being given with Deputy Sheriff H.M. Carroll. Now, Mr. Carroll, if you will, explain some of the events that took place at Luke's grocery store on September 18, 1970, as they relate to the case of David Keaton.
Well, about 2:30, Officer Thomas Rebels and myself went in. I went over to the tobacco counter to get myself some chaw. Thomas, he went around back towards the milk case. Then I heard a nigger tell him, "Get on over there, I ain't got no time to fool with you." So I went around back around to where he was at. There was this boy. He had a gun. He said, "Don't give us no trouble." He had sort of a afro haircut. Not a full-grown afro, but he looked like he was trying to grow himself some afro hair. He had a little mustache, best I can remember. I mean, everything was going on so fast there. And the other one had about 5 or 6 customers tied down. He was about 6 foot tall. And that third son of a bitch had a kind of a, I don't know, you seen him with a kind of a scar or something on the forehead?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, they told us to give them all my money. So we did, about $32. Then they said, we want them watches too. We didn't neither one of us pull our watches off. And they told us to lay down. So we did. And one of them reached over and grabbed himself some pantyhose to tie us up with. Well, myself and Cummings, we got up and tackled them. Ain't nobody gonna be trying to tie me up with no pantyhose. Well, the other one, he come down shooting at us. They must have fired 18, 20 bullets during that ruckus there. 2 hit me. 2 hit Combs. I could see that he was dead. The niggers, they just disappeared.
Now, in listening to these people talk, did they have any type of accent? I mean, did they sound like they was local people, or was they from out of state?
No, they just sound like regular niggers to me.
And I was just 18. I didn't know the rules then. And then they come in and start talking to me. And then they start threatening me. They come in and mess you up, beat you up, and hang you up. Nobody heard nothing about you. And I was afraid, so to prevent that, I said, okay, we're going to confess to the crime. I know I'm telling the truth. And the witnesses, they're going to see that too. Because I just want them. And they all going to see that. So I let them carry on. And they gave me all the information already. All I got to do is put some names to the spots. And we can all go free.
Sonny Jacobs. In 1976, I was sentenced to death row, which for me wasn't a row at all because I was the only woman in the country who had the sentence of death. So I suggested they put me in the same cell as my husband. Let me start at the beginning. When I was 26, Jesse and I had been together 3 years. We weren't officially married, but I considered him my husband, you know? Our daughter had just been born, and Jesse said he was going to get himself a regular job, maybe painting murals or something. But he just had to go to Florida one last time to do a little deal. Now, I didn't want to know about this deal because I knew it wasn't positive. It wasn't violent, but it wasn't positive. So finally, he calls to say that the deal fell through, and not only is he broke and has no way home, but he's staying with some girl. So of course me, instead of saying, well, when you get your act together, me and the kids will be here waiting for you, I said, I'll be right there to get you. My son Eric was 9, and I was driving and shifting and singing and nursing Tina all at the same time. It was like driving through 10 plagues, you know, with the first being the oil leaking all over the road, and the final one, you know those love bugs that smash themselves on your window? So anyway, we get there. We get Jesse, the car dies, and now we're all stuck in Florida. And Jesse says he's going to call this guy he knows and see if we can stay at his place till we can scrape the money together to get back home. And that's when I met Walter Rose. So we're all stuck in Florida, staying at Walter Rose's apartment, and it's a real sleazebag place. I mean, the guy is obviously doing illegal activities.
Hey, Rose, we're gonna take off. Do you mind giving us a ride over to my friend's house in Broward County?
Oh, I don't know, man. It's late. I don't know if I want to be on the road.
Come on, man. Nothing ever happens in Broward.
And it was so weird. My son Eric woke up screaming in the middle of the night. He had this nightmare that something terrible was going to happen to us. And it did.
It's not easy to feel good in the winter wind. Ice is everywhere, and you just want to see it. Copyright 1997, Delta Tears. I'm Delta Tears. I'm a child of the 60s and 70s, right? So much of the philosophy that people were motivated by during them times, I was, and continue to be motivated by it. I have an ongoing and abiding interest in things philosophical and metaphysical. I won't say religious. So in 1972, I went to a seminary for a year and a half. But the racism there was so pervasive, you could cut it with a knife. So I decided the seminary wasn't going to take me where I needed to go. So I dropped out, and I began roaming America. We called it tuning in. Tune in, turn on, and drop out. And I haven't turned off for a long time. So that's where I was at. And I happened to be in Florida with some crazy stuff happening. A guy was killed, and a young woman was raped. And I happened to be in Florida. Now I know some folks were gonna say,
Now, what's this nigger doing here? Who is he? And why is he here?
and so forth and so on. But I was like, fuck that. I'm an American citizen. I served in the United States Armed Forces and all that shit. Now the point I'm trying to make, that in my mind, I was gonna be free in terms of my movements. I was gonna go anywhere in these United States that I wanted to go. And whatever came of that, if it was trouble, I'd deal with it when it came. Sure enough, trouble came. Now, because the crime had occurred, and I happened to be on the highway in Florida, I was stopped and questioned. But the captain wrote me a note saying,
This person was stopped by me on this date, and I'm satisfied that he is not the person wanted in connection with the crimes that occurred in southern Florida.
now, initially, the girl who survived the thing, she described the murderer as a black man, about 5'6", very dark complexion, with pockmarked skin and a bushy afro. Now that don't fit me no matter how you draw it. Separation. That's the only thing we had in common. We were both black men. So, the cops stopped me again. And I was like, no, I'm not. I was stopped in Florida.
This person was stopped by me on this date,
And to the satisfaction of the Florida Highway Patrol, I am not the person you're looking for. He said,
Bullshit!
he said,
You're Delbert Tibbs. I got a warrant for your arrest.
and they arrested me in Mississippi.
I mean, I might as well be wearing a sign that said arrest me, young black.
I mean, it is always something. And the thing is, it's not all police officers, and it's not all white people, but it's just those few that make the rest of them look so bad.
But I mean, hypothetically speaking, if me and a white woman would have an altercation, the cop gonna say it's okay for her, but for me, oh, she got to say, oh, he touched my breast or he touched my booty, and then go to wildfire.
But you know, baby, it's not just whites either. I mean, it's blacks.
It's not to cut you off, but me and this white guy was sitting the other night at this gas station. We just sitting there talking. The cop gonna come back around and talk to us. Now he ain't gonna ask me if I was having a problem. He gonna ask the white guy if he was having a problem. He said,
I see both you all talking and moving your hands.
now we all know black folk talk with their hands, if you haven't noticed. But he said,
No, me and Robert, we was just sitting up here talking.
then the cop said,
Do you know, Robert?
Oh yeah, I've been knowing him for the longest.
but then the cop said,
I thought he was harassing you.
Okay.
you see, God put everyone on her for a reason. God put the ass and God put the fleas. But there are a lot of white people who make me upset. Now I ain't gonna go call them crack and I'm gonna get my cousins and all that.
No, go get your cousin, baby. Your cousin crazy.
But if there's anyone that should have anything against anyone in this country, it should have been Indians. Because if it wasn't, I might have been sitting up there saying, yes, ma'am, Miss Daisy. It's going to get a lot better. Maybe it's going away.
But Robert, okay, no one. In my opinion, you ain't never gonna get rid of it. As my father taught me, that things are passed down from generation to generation. So if the older generation teach the younger generation, you ain't never gonna get rid of it.
No time to talk about dreams in this world. No space to place words in some lovely configuration. Deliberation is not the method of passage in these words. Cold, tired. If you dream in this world, it's dangerous.
My son Eric couldn't sleep because of the nightmare, and I just couldn't stay with Rhodes one more night. So finally, Rhodes agreed to give me, Jesse, and the kids a ride. But the traffic got bad, and it was getting late, so the decision was made to pull off the road until morning. And according to the police reports, cops came to do a routine check on the rest area. And when they looked in the window, they saw a gun between Rhodes' feet. They ordered Rhodes out of the car and asked for his ID. The policeman calls in the ID information and then tells Rhodes,
You can stand over there. I'm through with you.
and then they ask my husband Jesse to get out. And then the police radio comes back with the announcement that Rhodes is on parole. And possession of a gun is a parole violation, and that changed everything. The policeman drew his gun. He said,
The next person to move is dead.
it all happened so fast, you know. I just ducked down to cover the and then it was silence. I mean, dead silence. There wasn't an earthly sound. And then Rhodes runs from around the front of the police car with a gun in his hand, and he's saying,
Come on, we're gonna take the police car!
I mean, Rhodes had just shot 2 policemen, had a gun, and was telling us to get in the police car. And you know, people say, why didn't you just refuse to go? And I think, you've never been at the other end of a gun, have you? So we get in the police car. We couldn't speak. We were kidnapped at that point, and we didn't dare. And so we left, and the traffic got terrible, and you could hear the helicopters, and I know the whiskey of roadblocks. The help was on the way, you know, the cavalry. And all of a sudden, Rhodes takes a sharp left to avoid the roadblock, and this line of policemen opens fire on the car. I mean, the car is literally bouncing from the bullets. So again, and a bunch of cops surround us. And I'm trying to explain that we were kidnapped, but they just wouldn't listen.
All right, Sonia. Do you want me to call you Sonny?
It doesn't matter.
You know what today's date is?
I think it's the 20th.
Is it Friday?
Let me interject one thing here. Are you aware of the fact that you've been charged and arrested on first-degree murder?
You just told me now.
I took a polygraph test around midnight. They wouldn't let me lie down. They wouldn't let me sleep. And the polygraph examiner said he could not pass me because of flatlines due to fatigue. Well, duh. It's midnight. I've been under questioning now for 6 hours, and my parents have just been murdered. About 1 a.m. they got out 3 or 4 photos of my parents with their heads pulled back. You could look down their throats, and the detectives yelling,
How could you do this? The person who gave birth to you!
and this is how the interrogation went. I was in such a vulnerable and suggestible state from finding my parents and not knowing what happened. I was emotionally distraught. I was physically exhausted. I was confused. I had 15 cups of coffee. I was spaced out. The police, they used that. They said that they had all the evidence. They didn't even need my confession. They said they had the bloody fingerprints, the weapon, everything. I was brainwashed, man. They told me.
We can't lie to you or we lose our jobs.
And they seemed very sincere, very believable. They started to make me think I had a blackout and actually done it. I said, look, if I killed my parents, I want to know about it. So I said if I could construct the situation in my mind, if finally agreed to give what they call a vision statement. A hypothetical account of what I would have done if I had killed my parents.
To try and jog your memory.
To try and jog my memory. I guess I would have gotten up that morning.
The defendant stated that they woke up that morning.
My mom would have been in the trailer out in front of the house.
Said he looked outside and saw his mother in the trailer.
I would have gotten dressed. And I would have had to have had a knife in my pocket or something.
He indicated that he put his pants on and that he had a knife in his pants pocket.
I guess I would have gone over to the trailer she was in.
Said he walked up to the trailer and stepped onto the porch.
And walked in.
Said he opened the door and walked in.
I would have had to have reached out toward my mom.
He said he grabbed his mother with his left hand, cut her throat with his right.
I never would have heard her. I used that vision statement for a confession. And they wouldn't let me say anything besides how I would have done it. Anytime I tried to say anything else, they would just holler at me and holler at me and holler at me. So I gave the statement about my mom. I cried for about 3 minutes. And then I told them how I would have killed my father. And then I told them, this is just hypothetical. I have absolutely no memory of any of this. The autopsies proved that everything I said in those statements was wrong. That nothing was written down, nothing was recorded. At my trial, they said that I was free to go at any time. That I was never under arrest. That I had voluntarily chatted with them for 12 hours and then suddenly blurted out facts that only the killer would know.
Yeah, man. It definitely has an effect on you for people to lock you up. First of all, it shows you they have the power to do it. Then they tell you they're going to kill you, and you're inclined to believe it. So yeah, it definitely messes with one's sense of personal power. You know what I'm saying?
So I actually did at first try to lie, and I told the cops, I don't know these people, I was just a hitchhiker. Stupid, because of course they think you're lying because you did something. But I was just scared.
Now I'm gonna ask you point blankly, who shot the highway patrolman and the other officer?
I don't know.
Did you shoot the highway patrolman?
No.
Did you shoot anyone, Sonny?
No.
Do you know if anyone was shot?
I'm sorry. People were shot. The patrolmen were shot, and that's what this is all about.
Well, how do you know that the 2 police officers are dead?
You said that's what we're here for.
We advised you that they were dead because we had to read you your rights. Now it is imperative that you relate the facts of this to the best of your ability. Now something caused you to become very disturbed. What was that something?
This is very upsetting because how does this guy he just told us to sit in the car, you know, and I'll stay here and I won't make any calls. I haven't done anything except the wrong choice of people, and I know.
But you do want to cooperate with the
Yeah.
state of
Well, you're not being very cooperative, are you? Because you're saying that there are things that you don't even remember, yet you were there. You were there, Sonny.
I'm sorry, I know, but I never had anything like this happen to me before, and I don't want to be blamed for something that I had nothing to do with, and I don't want them to take the kids away. And I know, because the baby's crying and crying and crying, and Eric's scared, and I do want to help.
Yes, sweetheart, we want you to help us.
And I just don't, I don't know what this guy was up to, and I don't want to be pulled into it, but I am trying to cooperate with
Yes,
you.
sweetheart, we fully understand this.
So, if I can't tell you everything you need to know, please don't be angry with me.
All right, okay. Is there anything else you care to add to your statement at this time?
I can't think of anything, but if I do, I will.
All right. Statement you made today, true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Answer me!
Yes. And what I didn't know was, at the same moment I was being questioned and Jesse was being questioned, that Rhodes, from his hospital bed, was negotiating a deal. He'd been to prison before, he knew how the system worked, and so he was claiming that he didn't do it, we did.
Okay, Mr. Rhodes. Who had the gun in their hand when the first shot was fired?
Well, when the gun first went off, Sonia was the one holding the gun. This is not, this is the best of my knowledge. I'm not 100% sure. But to the best of my knowledge, Sonia fired 2 shots. Then I believe Jesse pulled the gun away from her, fired 1 more time, and then shot the other cop twice.
Okay, let me recap this. To the best of your recollection, Sonia fired first.
First, yes.
It is your testimony here today that Sonia fired the first 3 shots at the Florida Highway Patrolman?
Yeah, either the first 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
Oh, 2, for sure.
And then what happened?
Well, then I started to go around to get in my car. It didn't even enter my mind. But Jesse said to get in the police car, we've got to get out of here, or something like that. And I said, no, you know, wait a minute, what happened? Well, anyway, I did eventually get in the police car. I was damn near in a state of shock myself.
Thank you.
No problem.
So I'm sitting in Mississippi. After a couple of days of being locked up, I decided I would raid extradition. Now, this was because of my spiritual growth. In fact, I had a friend. He had something he called his nigger radar, right? It sort of alerted him when, as he quoted Doc Vader, there's a disturbance in the fault. But I'm operating on another thing, because much of the tension that I had felt regarding race has sort of been washed away. I had reached a spiritual plateau, if you will, from being on the road. I wasn't expecting any violence. I had befriended all kinds of people, mostly white folks, because there wasn't no black folks around. I hitchhiked across the state of Texas, which is about as big as Russia, you know? And I got one ride from the brother. Brother picked me up, brother said,
Man, you know brothers don't hitchhike out here too much.
I know. I don't have any money. What am I going to do? So anyway, after a couple of days, I waived extradition to Florida. Now, this means I voluntarily went back. And if I hadn't done that, I probably never would have gone to that road. Because the state of Florida didn't have a case. No one had seen me there. There was nothing to tie me to where the crime had occurred. Fingerprints, none of that shit. Because I wasn't there. And, you know, in the state of Florida, like most places, the jury is selected from the voting records. This is 1974. Black folks only had the right to vote since 1965. This is a backwater town that's ran sort of like a plantation. And the folks in charge there are the folks in charge. And I sometimes tell folks, if you're accused of a sex crime in the South and you're black, then you probably should have done it. Because your ass is going to be guilty. And they found me guilty.
Gentlemen, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. You all understand that? You can't answer the question. Yes? Good. Robert Hayes.
He's in the first chair, Your Honor.
Good. Mr. Hayes? Mr. Hayes?
He hears the court, Your Honor. He just doesn't want to show his face to the cameras.
I want him to respond to me. Mr.
I said yes.
Good. Mr. Hayes, you are charged with murder in the first degree. There is probable cause that the accused did commit the offense. He'll be held on no bond.
Your Honor, Mr. Hayes has indicated that he does not wish to speak to law enforcement without his lawyer present.
Okay. Mr. Hayes, can you afford an attorney?
No.
Are you employed?
I was.
Do you have any property?
No.
Do you have any bank accounts?
No.
Do you own an automobile?
No.
This court will find Mr. Hayes to be indigent. Appoint the public defendant to represent you.
Thank you.
This is a weird country, man. It really is. It always amazes me when I talk about this. I say, figure this out. You have all these guys. They go to Vanderbilt, to Yale, to Princeton and Harvard and shit, and they look at the same information, but come up with diametrically opposite conclusions. Figure that out. It tells us it has nothing to do with your intelligence. It has to do with your preconceptions, your tendency, the way you look at another human being. That's what it's about.
So, they had a lead that the victim's boyfriend, Professor Whitfield, had done the murder, but they didn't go after him. They went after me. They said the crime was done by a homosexual, maniacal murderer who hated women. The prosecution accused me of being a homosexual before the jury.
A young woman lies in her grave not far from this courtroom because of charismatic Cook's warped homosexual lust for blood and perversion.
Objection, Your Honor. The defendant's alleged homosexuality has nothing to do with the allegations in this murder indictment.
That motion is overruled.
We would then like to make a request to the jury that they cannot consider.
Your motion is also overruled.
We would then like to make a request to the court to declare a mistrial in this case.
Proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would be remiss in my duties if I did not show you every last grotesque detail. Because the killer sits right before you, here in this courtroom. And it is time for 12 good people from this county to put that man on the scrap heap of humanity where he belongs. He has a warped perversion and will not reason with you. The victim was a young woman just starting to realize her dreams, and he butchered her body. This is the kind of sick perversion that turns Carrie Max Cook on. You people have no right to even submit prison guards to the kind of risk this man poses. Now you think about it. Would you give a sick pervert his butcher knife back? Now you must look upon this as putting a sick animal to sleep. Caramax Cook has forfeited his rights to walk among us. Caramax Cook no longer has any rights. So let's us all show all the freaks and the perverts and the murderous homosexuals what we do to them in a court of justice. We take their lives.
My husband Jesse was tried first, and he had a past record from when he was 17 years old. And his trial lasted 4 days. We both had, of course, no good attorneys, no dream team, no expert witnesses. And so he was convicted and sentenced to death. My trial came later, and I thought, surely that won't happen to me. I mean, I was a hippie. I'm one of those peace and love people. I'm a vegetarian. How could anyone possibly think I could kill someone? So I thought I'd go in, they'd figure out I didn't kill anyone, and they'd let it go. But that's not how it works. There was prosecutorial misconduct. There was hiding of evidence that would have proven I didn't do it. The jury wasn't even allowed to know that Rhodes had accepted a plea bargain of 3 life sentences in exchange for his testimony. Now, I don't think that 3 life sentences is a bargain. Nobody I know would think it's a bargain. But I didn't have investigators. I didn't have expert witnesses. I didn't have thousands of dollars. My parents said, well, you know, they told us we could try to get you a better lawyer. But you have a lawyer. They've appointed you one, so it's okay. We didn't know.
The state respectfully submits that in that grocery store, David Keaton actually fired at Sheriff Carroll in order to come to the assistance of his co-defendant, who was in the process of cold-bloodedly murdering and killing Officer Thomas Reynolds. It's just as clear and simple as that. As a matter of fact, that is actually the truth.
It was a quiet and peaceful Sunday night before David Keaton, then only 18 years of age, was speedily whisked away to the jail in Quincy. He was not told the reason for his arrest, nor were his parents informed.
They're gonna try to tell you that all of Keaton's answers were suggested by the officers, that he was framed, not by one officer, not by 2 officers, but by 3 or more state and county law enforcement officers.
Now, the defendant was questioned without benefit of counsel. Now, this was despite his repeated requests to his interrogators that his mother be called and obtain legal assistance. Well, at approximately 11 p.m., he was taken to the jail down in Tallahassee, where questioning resumed and continued until the following morning.
Now, Keaton could have said anything he wanted to in those statements. There was nobody making him say those things, and of course this jury knows that that would be impossible, impractical. You just can't make somebody say something. Nobody can.
You know, there is a law in this state that says any person arrested shall be brought without delay and have the charges read against him in an open court. Well, the defendant was arrested on a Sunday, and this courthouse is open on a Monday. Oh, and it's open on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday as well.
but he was not brought before a judge until Friday, although he had been arrested the Sunday before. Now, I have nothing but respect for the deputy sheriffs, but I recognize, too, that it was a member of their staff who was killed. Now, wouldn't it seem reasonable to you that they would be a bit more, emotionally involved in the investigation?
They tell you exactly how they're going to do it. They're going to send 2,200 volts of electricity through your body until you're dead. And then they ask you if you have anything to say to that. So after the judge read the sentence, I just said, "Are you finished?" I didn't have anything to say. What do you say? How can you say anything to that?
I don't remember any of my dreams from when I was on death row, which absolutely fascinates me. When I was at the University of Chicago, I took part in a laboratory experiment. They was testing to see if people with creative minds' dreams different from those with less creative. So of course, it appealed to the ego of me that somebody was thinking I was creative. But they would monitor your REMs and your respiration and so forth. And we would go to sleep in the laboratory. And they would wake us up over a mic. And it always seemed to me like it was one of them Nazi doctors. Because he had an accent, you know. And he'd be like, "Mr. Tibbs, you were dreaming." I'm on to say, no shit. But fascinating thing was, when these motherfuckers hooked me up, they would put the receptors by my ears, right at the exact same place they did when they're ready to execute your ass.
Instead of sending me to be Jesse's cellmate, they decided to clear out an entire disciplinary unit at the women's prison. It's a very old prison. It's like a dungeon type place. It was 6 steps from the door to the toilet bowl. You could stretch out your arms and touch both walls. They take your clothes and they give you a number. So basically, they're taking who you are from you. You no longer have a name, you're a number. You're locked inside this tomb. It's like you're thrown to the bottom of the well.
There was this woman who used to live down the street from me when I was just a little boy. She had this here garter on her neck right there. And I said, "Lord, if you gave me the power of the Spirit, I would lay my hands on her and the illness would just disappear." That's all I want. Having the power of the Spirit operate through me. Whether it be knowledge or discernment, speaking the word or whatever. Lord, I would love to do that before I die. I had a relationship to God before I got in here. It seems somehow I've lost it. I guess I'm still reaching and trying to find it. So some nights now, I just like to light me a couple candles and lay back and just meditate, because they say the kingdom of God is within you. Isn't it? See, people are always looking for something outward. When that light's within you. It's that voice we speak to. Mom, boy. Gives you the chills when I say that, right?
You know, when I was in there, I saw 141 guys go down. All I gotta do is pick up a paper, turn on the news, such and such becomes the 222nd inmate executed and resulted from capital punishment. And I'll hear the name and I'll say, oh my God, because I know him. I don't just know him. I ate with him. I cried with him. We used to play basketball and say, man, you're gonna go free. You know, I got this book, a book about the Texas death row, and seriously, this book is what? 5 years old, and everyone in here has been executed. I can go through this book one by one and point out every face that's gone.
Executed. Executed. Executed.
And in a capital trial, the prosecutors will always say, he's dangerous. He's a maniac. He's a sick, twisted murderer. But I'm no different than you. I wasn't a street thug. I wasn't trash. I came from a good family. If it could happen to me, it could happen to anyone.
I was in X house, the execution house, and that place was like something out of a movie. I mean, there were no guards. They just open your door and let you walk around. I guess they figured you're gonna die anyway, so why not? So you can walk around through this dimly lit series of corridors and through an observation room and then into the execution room. That's where the phone was that all of us used, which was also the phone the government would use to call in and stop an execution. The whole place was run by gangs. And there was ongoing warfare between the different factions, and the only gang open to white guys was the Northsiders, which is basically made up of the Aryan Nation and the skinheads, so I had no gang protection. So I just kept to myself a lot. I killed a lot of time on my own. And one way I killed time is I found a sewing needle stuck in a concrete wall. Somebody had smuggled it in, so I taught myself embroidery. Yeah, blue jeans made real good blue thread, and I was lucky because I'd kept the old yellow jumpsuit they gave me to wear when I first got in. So that gave me yellow. And you take apart your sheath, that gives you white. So I had 3 colors of thread just from unraveling cloth. And I made myself a tote bag I take to chow hall. I embroidered flowers on it. And I sewed bell bottoms on a couple of my prison blues. Made a Calvin and Hobbes patch I put on my cap. They confiscated that.
Now, when I was in there, one of the officers was harassing my neighbor and I was a witness. And one of the other inmates wanted to write the officer up, so he asked me.
Hey, Robert, would you mind if you signed a statement?
I said, yeah, I told him, yeah. But a couple of days later, the officer gonna come back to work. And someone just told me to pay attention to him. Sure enough, one day he gonna read that statement, he gonna get back at me. He gonna go spit off in my teeth. Now, I seen him spit off in my teeth, so I said, now why would you do that?
Do what? I didn't do that.
Now hold on, I'm gonna prove it to you. So I went and got me a piece of toilet paper, and I twisted it up. And I stuck it directly on top of that T, and I went around. And I said, Now what is that? You can have my key. You can take that shit back, motherfucker. Robert Hayes, number 9519817, May 21st, 1996. Judge Captain, I'm writing to you in regards to some matters that I'm having here in this jail. Superintendent declined to answer any of my grievances, so I'm making you aware before I get charged this time with something I did do. Now the problem is Officer Santiago, who is constantly provoking me. He don't come in my jail cell, toss my legal papers around, just trying to provoke me to fight him. Today he got classification to relocate me to the day room of a special wing for the drug offenders. Now by law, they're supposed to have anyone sleeping in that day room, no matter what wing it's in. And just my luck, some other inmate, some snitch gonna grab my legal papers, call the state saying Robert Hayes confessed to me. Trying to get himself in there saying, if you let me out, I'll testify against him. And you, Judge Kaplan, are gonna believe that fuck shit. Now I'm asking you to grant me an order stating that me and the state and office should be kept away from one another because I'm not gonna take any more of this bullshit. I appreciate your time. I'm pretty sure I'll see you on another charge and refuse to keep me and Santiago away from one another. Robert Hayes.
Sure enough, some snitch did get a hold of Robert's legal papers, just like you said.
So, they accused me of being a homosexual. And that got to me. And that got to death row even before I got there. So in prison, I was I had 3 guys pull a train on me, and they raped me and sodomized me, and they carved good P-U-S-S-Y on my behind. And it's there all over my body. It's cut so deep, I can't have it removed because it's not a tattoo. And I attempted suicide a couple times with this whole little war. I'm fighting on one side of the criminal justice system, and then I'm fighting with the fear of my life from these inmates every day.
Needless to say, Job is one of my favorite biblical figures. I don't know if I had the patience with Job, but I hope I had his faith. Because if you have a teeny weeny bit of this, it's big. Because that shit is hard to come by. And I realized a long time ago that I internalized all this hurt, all this anger, all this pain. I'd be dead already. They wouldn't have to execute me.
When I was inside, this one time, I had this feeling come over me. I felt the longing of God for his people. His desire for his people. His love for his people, not to be cast aside. But I felt all this, and here I was on death row. At the time I felt that we was outside for recreation. And in the yard there was a shuffleboard court and a basketball court over here. And above the basketball court was a curtain. with the electric chair show. They always had that electric chair show. Even when you're playing, they gotta remind you that you are gonna die. Because there's a chair. But it started storming. And I reached my hand up in that sky, and I said, in the name of Jesus, I command this rain to stop. This one guy looked at me and said, man, you do that again, I'm gonna be a believer. So it started again. So I said it again. In the name of Jesus, I command this rain to stop. That same guy looked at me and said, man, you do that one more time. So I started storming again. Same thing. In the name my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I command this rain to stop. At that time, that guy, he didn't have to say one word to me. He just looked at me and was like, you know? Then it started raining again until after we was done playing. We had to go back inside. And when that last man stepped foot through that door, the whole world just bursted open. And it rained for the rest of the night.
I have 15 years worth of letters between me and Jesse. I saved not just the letters, but the envelopes, because anything that he touched, anything that he wrote on, anything that he licked with his tongue, I was keeping. I didn't even read them when I first got them. I would just carry it around with me for a while, just to hold it. I'd look to see if he put the stamp on right side up or upside down, because that was part of his message too. And then I'd open it, and I wouldn't read it for content. I'd just look at it to see, did it look like he was happy when he wrote it, or sad? Did the writing slant upward or downward? Oh, it's big round open letters. He must have been having a good day. Oh, it's very tight writing. I can see he was having some problems. I just savor the whole thing, and then I read it. We carried on a fairly full life, actually, in our letters, including our sex life. Oh, yeah. You know, you have to send your letters out unsealed so they can read them and see that there's no escape plans or whatever. So we got ourselves these little Japanese dictionaries, and we used the Japanese language for our lovemaking because we wanted to have some privacy.
September 30th, 1976. My dearest son, I love you. It's about 11 p.m. now, and I'm sitting here up on my bunk. TV's on, the sound off, and on the channel is just fuzzy so I can use it for live. I'm reading King Lear and Hamlet, if you can believe that. I'm studying too much law lately, and I need to give my head something relaxing too. I received your beautiful letter and 2 pictures of the kids. We are so lucky. I love you so much. You're my woman, as close as my breath. You're the strongest female I've ever known. Hand in glove, you know. Never be lonesome. We're only separated by miles, and this won't last either. Believe that. I sure wish I could speak to you alone. I'd say for a few hours. Ito Bonju Kumiyulo Akastata. Kamito Hito Sune Narata. No place of mine. Don't worry. I'm on the case, lover. I love you, Mama. Jensen.
And so we had this life, you know? This little world together. I existed on those letters.
I was, holding on for my brother. I can't tell you how close we were. He wasn't just my big brother. He was my role model. I worshiped him. He was everything I wasn't. He didn't smoke pot. He made straight A's in school. And I was the black sheep of the family. My brother was always trying to rescue me. They're strict on me.
No, Carrie. No, I'm going to lose you. I'm going to lose you. You're going to get hurt.
And there I was, sitting on death row. My brother was taken up from me my whole life. And I was just always this real soft, sensitive person, I guess. I had so many girlfriends because I was so sensitive. I don't mean girls like girls sexually, I mean friends to girls. So my brother, last time I touched him, I was in Smith County Jail. He came to visit, he reached in and he was crying and he held my hand and he said,
"No, Carrie, you're not going to die. It's not over. You're going to get out."
I was the baby of the family and my brother would come visit me and I'd have these black eyes and stuff. And he'd say,
I want you to tell me who did this to you. I'm going to go talk to the warden.
"You don't understand. You'll get me killed. That's called snitching. That's the worst thing you could do." So I forced my brother. When he thought he could help me, I took that away from him too. Saying, "You can't help me. I'm on my own now." And he started drinking. I had it all, man. He was a senior supervisor at a huge corporation company, and he fell into the bottle. Lost his wife, lost his kids. He'd sit in a dark room, get drunk, and talk about his little brother, Carrie. Why isn't he coming home? Put himself right on death row with me. And he's working as an assistant manager at a McDonald's in downtown Jacksonville, and there's this guy named Jeff who works there. Jeff said that my brother liked him because my brother told him, "You're a lot
like my little brother Carrie."
And that's how they got them friends. So one night after work, they go to this club in Tyler, Texas. There's a pool table there. You know how you get when you're drinking beer and you're hot with a stick? And my brother, he's running the table on this one last guy, and he says to Jeff,
"You go along, I'll be there in a minute."
And Jeff's walking out of the club, and there were these two black guys sitting up on a table, and one of them's wearing sunglasses. And Jeff reaches up, he's just playing, takes the glasses, puts them on, and mimics Stevie Wonder. And the guy says,
"Say what's wrong you, man?"
And he jumps off the table, gets real aggressive, and he says,
"I'm gonna put a world of hurt on him."
And right about now, my brother walks up and he says,
"Hey, man."
But Jeff just says,
"Man, fuck these people!"
and walks out. And my brother followed him outside. It's December 27th, 1997, and it's really cold that night. And my brother and Jeff are both trying to get in the car, but the locks are frozen. And this pickup truck pulls up behind my brother, and Jeff says,
"Hey, watch out!"
And my brother turns around, and this guy gets out of the car with his hand behind his back, and he says,
"What you gonna do for me, white boy? What you gonna call me nigga? What you gonna do for me?"
There were all kinds of people standing around him. And my brother told him,
Hey, look, man. Listen, we've all been drinking tonight. This is nothing to have no misunderstanding about, you know. Hey, you're gonna wake up in the morning and laugh about this whole thing.
And the guy says,
Fuck you, man!
and he brings from behind his back a big old 44 Magnum, and he shoots him. And my brother, so weird, man. He rose up and stood up. His eyes were looking fixated straight ahead, and Jeff walks over. He couldn't even tell he was shot. And Jeff says,
Man, are you okay? Man, are you okay?
and blood starts pouring out my brother's nose, and he fell, and he died on the parking lot. And with me being on death row, the DA was reluctant to take it to trial. She says that the defense would argue that my brother bragged that he had a brother on death row and he was bad. So they got my mom and dad to agree to a plea bargain, and that guy that shot my brother, he got 10 years. And he got out in 3. My mother would look me in the eye and tell me that I'm responsible for my brother's murder. That if it weren't for me being on death row, he would still be here. She would tell me that. You know, I know it's going to sound corny there, but I mean it. Not a day goes by that I wish I could tell him how much I loved him. So, when you got it, don't take it for granted. Because you never know.
First, I had to decide, this is bullshit. I am not going to let them do this to me. Because if you sit there rubbing 2 sticks together and crying on your sticks, they're never going to make a spark. But you know, if you stop feeling sorry for yourself long enough, and because you're determined not to believe in hopelessness, then a spark happens, and then you just keep fanning that flame until you've got a bigger flame. And I realized it's like a big trick, that I'm not just this little lump of flesh that they can put in a cage. And I decided that I would have faith that there was some power out there that was greater than them, to which I could make my appeal. Now, you people that don't believe, you could say that I was like Dumbo, and I put a feather in my nose and flew because I could fly anyway. Or you could say that there really is something out there. And if you have faith in it, and you appeal to it, it will answer. And maybe we're both right. I don't know.
Now, before I went to prison, I had a dream about prison. I seen inside, I seen death row, and I seen myself getting out. Now, because of that dream, I always said I was going to get in trouble. Sure enough, one day I was waking by all this commotion. All the inmates going to get up in their vents hollering.
Turn the radio on!
Yeah, I put that radio on. And later on that day, my lawyer came and she said,
Now you know, Robert, if you lose, you can go back to death row.
well, I said, now, according to that dream, I'm going to go free. And she said,
You're going to put all your trust in a dream.
and I said, yep. Now my lawyer found a record that said in the girl's hand when she died was some white people hair, red and 16 inches long, and they said,
while you were strangling this girl, she reached up and pulled her own hair.
now hold on, Now when you come up behind me and you strangle me, you gonna pull out your own hair or you gonna pull out the hair whoever back there behind you?
Okay.
You can have a seat. Now we all know that this white guy, her ex-boyfriend, was asking her on a date, telling her,
Why do you keep hanging out with all them blacks?
he asked her that same night.
We going out?
She said, we ain't. Now my lawyer found out the cops had that hair. Found the guy, he won't stand up and testify my appeal. So she asked him,
Back in 1990, what color was your hair and how long was it?
now by this time he had short hair, salt and pepper, you know, and he said,
My hair's the same color and length it was back then as it is now.
so then my lawyer says,
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure.
so then my lawyer pulls out his envelope and shows it and says,
Again, in 1990, do you remember having your picture taken near the racetrack?
Yeah.
so then my lawyer pulls out this big old photograph picture and shows it to me. And there he was, hair red and 16 inches long on that picture. Okay.
So, after I had been on death row for 22 years, they found this DNA evidence. And the prosecution says that this will be the final nail in Carrie Max Cook's coffin. It will show the world once and for all that he killed that girl. And the results come in, and they did just the opposite. Finally took the nail out of my coffin, told the whole world the truth. That was Professor Whitfield's DNA that they found on the girl. And he's still out. He's walking around a free-man laughing at the system for 22 years.
About halfway through my time on death row, a lawyer named Larry Marshall took on my case. Now, he's at Northwestern, and he works with a bunch of law students there on wrongful convictions. My twin sister drove down there literally through a blinding snowstorm to see if he would take on my case. And he said yes. And that was like the cavalry. Once Larry started working on it, he found out about this biker gang called the Outlaws. Now, guys would perform violent acts to gain entrance into the gang. They killed a bunch of people. They bombed the Hells Angels. They just did a lot of stuff. And the federal government, the ATF, was running wiretaps on them. In 1995, the ATF got a videotaped confession from an outlaw guy saying he killed my parents. But I wasn't released until 1996. And that whole year in between their fight in my appeal, they fought it all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court. The two guys who killed my parents were just found guilty last year. But I've been adamant that those guys not get the death penalty. That might sound stupid, but why would I want them to die? It's not going to bring my parents back. No good is going to come from it.
In 1979, Walter Rose wrote the following letter to the judge.
I, Walter Norman Rose, hereby depose and say that I am under no duress, no coercion in executing this affidavit. The statement is made freely and voluntarily, and to purge myself, the former creator. Briefly, on February 20th, 1976, at approximately 7:15 a.m., I did, in fact, shoot to death 2 law enforcement officers with a 9mm Browning pistol. I state emphatically and unequivocally that my previous testimony against Jesse Tefero and Sonia Jacobs was false, and was part of the statements I was instructed to make by the state attorney who did coerce me into lying. I did take a polygraph examination relative to this case, but owing to the fact that I am a student of yoga and karate and have been for the last 10 years, I passed it and can pass any such test, in my opinion. Foregoing statements are true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief, I do swear. Walter Norman Rhodes, Jr., 9 November 1979.
Keep in mind that I wasn't released until 1992. So I'll just give you a moment to reflect. From 1976 to 1992, just remove that entire chunk of your life, and that's what happened. And after all that, one day the guard came walking into my cell and told me I was getting out. I thought he was trying to trick me. And it was just so joyous. I mean, I know a lot of people are angry, and I was angry some, but I didn't want to waste my time being mad. At first I did everything that Jesse and I said we were going to do together. I went to New York City, and I went to the bookstore we said we were going to go to. I bought the book we said we were going to buy to make our Japanese gardens. I was doing it all for both of us.
When I got out, I was numb. I didn't sleep for the first 3 days. I couldn't. When I was on death row, I slept like a baby every night. My first day home, they threw a party for me at my brother. My brother. He gave me the bed for the night. You know, with the red velvet cover and everything. And one of the sisters from the defense committee, she spent the night with me. I don't have to tell y'all, that was nice. But I just couldn't get the fuck asleep. I guess after around the 3rd day, I began hallucinating. A friend of mine, he says to me, he says, Double, you call my pastor. Ask him to say a prayer for you. Okay? So I talked to the pastor. And he said some kind of prayer. And that night, I laid down and I went straight to sleep. And I haven't had a problem sleeping since then. There we have it. But after that, the main adjustment is learning to feel again. Because when you're in prison, you can't allow yourself to feel. So when you get out, you have to practice. I had to practice a bunch just to be human again. To remind me.
Guess I'm still in there on the way. 'Cause after I got out, go to work, come home, close the door and lock it. Just like I was in prison. Go to work, go to the store, come home, lock the door. Click. And there I saw him. I said, what you doing locking the door for? You ain't locked up no more. You ain't gotta lock the door anymore, you free. Prison took that spark of life away from me. I can see it in my high school picture. Smiling. And some folks around here don't see me do much longer. Smile. In the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. Prison really did do something to me. No, I didn't like that. And I drank and smoked some marijuana and cocaine, crack cocaine. Perfect day to me is the day I can forget plastic and forget. Because I'm still trying to find out who I am. So what if I smoke a little joint of weed for, at least he can get me down and sit down and write some poetry just like I used to. What are you gonna do? They ain't got no power. You ain't got no power. Then you're Bruce. Being small is like standing next to this big old oak. You just a small pie. That's why I gotta get back to the spirituality thing and find that lot within. That's all I got, you know?
Actually, I am not a bleeding heart liberal at all. As a matter of fact, I had a family member murdered, and I was always a believer in the death penalty.
She's a scientist.
But I was on the board of directors at the Dallas Peace Center, and a guy from Amnesty approached me one day and told me he wanted me to help Carrie get integrated into society. So we were supposed to meet at this conference, and this boy walks in. I mean, he had on some jeans and any piece of clothing that had a zipper, you know, from the 70s. It had to have a zipper. He didn't want it. And he had grown his hair out, and he dyed it because, you know, he's really 19 at heart. And he couldn't look at anyone. He looked down. His leg was shaking the whole time.
I was super traumatized, especially with a female. I'm very shy.
Yeah, he got up and used the bathroom probably about 20
man,
times because he was
tell
so
him that.
nervous. But then I thought, and I'm ashamed to have had this thought, well, what did he do to get himself in that situation? Well, that's how I looked at it, because, you know, I was very conservative and also very stupid. But he gave me the evidence, the hardcore evidence, and it dawned on me, oh my God, how could this have happened? And he would get so close to you and look down, and I thought, my God, what has been done to this man?
The state of Texas executed me over 1,000 times, man. And it just keeps on doing it. I get nightmares. Sometimes I forget I'm really here. And every day when I get in the shower, I'm reminded of it because I cannot avoid the scars all over my body. This is the only woman that I've been with since I've been free because of that. And I married her. I think I'm going to keep her. You know, I'll be honest with you. The price of being here, alive, in this room is real extraordinary. So when I'm alone, you know, especially at night. Talk about a mental trip, huh?
I've been out 3.5 years, going on 4. And we've been married, what?
2 years? Yeah, about 2 years.
And that night she be wanting me to come home, but I don't want to come home. Because if I come home, make me feel like I'm still locked up. And there'll be a lot of time when she go to the store, she got to knock on the door to let me know she's coming in.
Yeah, he jumps. When I first moved in, I was be walking in and walking out, and he would just jump up. You know, and I'd have to remind myself, you know, take a minute, you know, let him calm down, because he's just in that mode. You know, all that stuff, it really plays with your mind.
I was in there 7.5 years. I don't think it's ever gonna go away. As far as I'm concerned, I lost my relaxation. You know, you never put your thoughts on what you could have lost or what you had lost. Could have been your millionaire, police chief. Could have been one of them famous horse trainers.
And they won't even give him his license back.
Truck Association won't give me my license back.
Can you believe that?
Went down to that county, passed my test of flying colors. They asked me if I ever been convicted of a crime, put down an application, no. But the Supreme Court overturned it. They wrote me back and told me I lied.
Tell me what you told your cousin.
So I went and told my cousin, I said, I'm gonna go to one of these gun shops around here. I'm gonna see if they're gonna deny me. I went and got me that gun, but the racing commission won't give me my license back. I can legally hold a gun, but I can't get a license to drive a horse.
He can't do something that he likes to do.
Can't do something I like to do. And all I want is, I want me to see a woman outside in the country, barn, tractor, a couple of horses. I don't ask for much. But they're saying I can't. Because of their mistake. Hey, what's the matter?
I had an incident at the market today, and I don't know why it upset me so much, but it really upset me. Well, it was awful. It was about you.
What, at the market? Somebody didn't like the produce?
No, I mean, this has been over 3 years now, and this guy was like, you know, it started, I just wanted to buy some beets, and
I'd like a bushel of beets.
I told him, well, all of our produce is certified organic, and he says,
Oh, so you grew all this just in water then?
I'm like, no, that's hydroponic, and he asks me,
Where do you farm?
and I told him. So he says,
Oh, you farm with that fellow who's in all that trouble.
oh, you mean Gary? Yeah, he's my husband.
Yeah, that was sort of a fishy case.
Well, you know, 2 bikers just confessed and were convicted.
Yeah, but Gouger confessed too, you know. The paper said.
There's gonna be idiots, you know? That guy's, he's living a lie, just like the newspapers, or the prosecutors, or whatever. Everybody perceives things in their own way. So, which one's the reality, you know? Is it your perception? Is it a composite of everybody's perception, or what? I mean, what is reality, Nate? We're all light beings, you know?
Gary, don't go there.
It's true. We're all light beings. I mean, people wonder, how could God create miracles? Well, it's because God moves at the speed of light, and time stops. You see, and once you get to the speed of light, you got all the time in the world to change things, and create miracles.
Oh, so you're an expert now.
Yeah, I mean, it's all there on a molecular level. Somebody told me once, God is DNA. And you look how tenacious that stuff is. You start to wonder.
You see, I got another chance because I looked for it. I looked to turn a pile of manure into flowers. I didn't even get lemons, I got manure. I mean, I'm not glad for what happened to me. When I was in there, my parents died, my children grew up without a family, and my husband was executed. Very, very brutally. Jesse's execution was known worldwide. The chair malfunctioned and made a mess of it, and they had to pull the switch 3 times. And he didn't die. It took 13.5 minutes for Jesse to die. 3 jolts of electricity that lasted 55 seconds each. Almost a minute each. Until finally flames shot out of his head and smoke came from his ears. And the people that came to see the execution on behalf of the press are still writing about it 10 years afterwards. Why do we do that?
How Gonzalez said, once he discovered who God was, all fears left to be God and the rest of the world. And it's true, you know. Because if you're not harming any kind of malice or any sort of thing like that in your heart, there really ain't much to be afraid of. And I understand why people are afraid. I mean, I think the world itself, if you think about it, can be quite frightening. You just getting up every day. But we can't give in to that. Because like they say in the cowboy movies, none of us are going to live forever. And if we got to go, we might as well go on being about the highest thing we can be. And that is learning not to fear other people on a human level, black, white, or whatever. It's really hard not to love all white people. I mean, if you're locked in a room and the guy wearing the gray suit comes in, and every time he comes in that room he hits you, afterwards, you're going to have a thing with people in gray suits. I don't give a fuck who they are. But I try not to look at the world monolithically like that. And that's what helped me to survive. I mean, I think the American criminal justice system is totally fucked up. I think there's some things about our country that's fucked up. But I also think it's a great country. I really do. But the fact that you probably had some people who knew a lot of folks was innocent, they weren't going to be the ones to lose their jobs, to jeopardize their kids' college education, or blow their new SUVs over an abstraction like justice. Now that's fucked up. That's really fucked up. And I know America gets tired. It's tired of people talking about what they ain't got or what's wrong with this country. Some folks would even say, what's right with the country? What the fuck, man? To make it better, we're not worried about what's right with it. We're worried about what's wrong with it. You don't ask the mechanic, what's right with my car? What's wrong with it is what we need to deal with.
I want to be a living memorial. When I die, I want them to plant tomatoes on me or apple trees or something so I can still be a part of things. And while I'm still alive, I am planting my seeds everywhere I go. So that they'll say, I once heard this woman, and she didn't let them stop her, and she didn't get crushed. And if that little woman person can do it, then I can do it. That's my revenge. That's my legacy and my memorial. You know, I've never been to Jesse's grave, and for a long time it was a bone of contention between his mother and me. But I explained to her, I said, that grave is not where Jesse really is. I said, that grave is your monument, and this is mine. My life is my monument.
This is the place for thought that does not end in concreteness. It's necessary for us to be careless. And it's dangerous to dwell here. To wonder who, why, and when. It's dangerous. That's how we get out of this hole. It's not easy to be a poet here. Yet, I sing. We sing.